Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series. Today we are going to start our discussion with a new module. It's regarding the modern age in English literature. So, the modern age in English literature ranges between 1900 and 1961 roughly. During this period, the European society witnesses industrialization, rapid social changes, and development in sciences, technology, and social sciences. Uh, Modernists found growing estrangement within, the Victorian standards of morality, convention, and optimism, and hence there was a need to urgently shift. New thoughts in philosophy, psychology, and political theory were emerging, which laid focus on new modes of expression. So the two world wars, the World War One between 1914 and 1918, and the World War Two between 1939 and 1945, had wreaked havoc. They had led to chaos in society. We have Austrian novelist and philosopher Hermann Brock, who looks at the irrational dimension in human behavior and the psychological anxiety, which are products of the modern society. According to Hermann Brock, the modern era bridges the reign of the irrational faith and the reign of the irrational in a world without faith. So these are actually two opposite poles. On the one hand, we have irrational faith towards God, towards government, towards an ideological position, and on the other hand, there is an overthrowing of all such irrational faith and the reign of the irrational in a world that has lost all its faith. So, this modern period saw the rise of anti-war literature and absurdist theater, which talks about the general absurd existence of humans and the fact that a search for a higher purpose, a higher meaning would inevitably lead to nothingness, which in a way reveals the chaotic nature of the universe. It's very difficult for the universe to fall into categories of meaning. That was a realization of the absurdist school of thought. Modernism reflects through thoughts, over sciences and psychology that show the impact of colonialism. This period marks the end of Victorian morality, like I said. And furthermore, the new trends of science and arts influence modern literature. Literature becomes more of an internal journey, and we see figures such as Karl Marx, Charles Darwin, and Sigmund Freud as some of the thinkers that are emerging as part of the modernist tradition. So, the general characteristics of modernism include anxiety and interrogation. From art for art's sake, l'art pour l'art, there is a shift to art for life's sake. And George Bernard Shaw is a harbinger of the latter. Earlier, art for art's sake would express the idea that art has its inherent value. There was a focus on aesthetics, right? And so that is the only lens, the aesthetic value of a work, which should be studied, which should be a point of study. Sans or any social, political, or ethical significance. So that was part of art for art's sake and aesthetic theory. It was a movement. So art for art's sake was a movement chiefly associated with the culture of patronage, from which there is a breakaway when we talk of art for life's sake, where there is socialization of art, democratization of art, which marks the formation of the middle class connoisseurs of art, a middle class audience, and art being made accessible to the commons. So, psychological lens is also being brought in to read literature during the modernist era. Some of the literary movements that we see during this time include Cubism, Dadaism, Surrealism, Expressionism, Symbolism, Imagism, among others. There is a strong opposition to traditional values. In modernism, the concept of absolute truth does not exist. So life is viewed as unordered and chaotic. There is a focus on subjectivism, impressionism, expressionism, and surrealism. So, modernism, however, when we compare modernism with postmodernism, we see that modernism is still, uh, you know, holding on to some last strings of conventionality, where some closure is still desired in narratives in art. So it tries to find depth and interior meaning beneath the surface of objects and events. It focuses on central themes and how much ever diversified and chaotic the world is, a unified, vision uh, is in in place. There is a lookout for a unity, a unified vision, particularly in a piece of literature. Then the modern authors also guide and control the reader's response to their work. So the authorial figure is not totally gone. Uh, Although it is not as despotic as it used to be earlier. Modernist novels also mourn the loss of the coherent world. So, some remnants from the pre-modern period, the Romantic period, for example, the realist tradition, they come back to haunt some aspects of modernism, at least. When we compare this with postmodernism, we see that postmodernism is suspicious of being profound. So the question of profundity is flouted by postmodernism altogether. It prefers dwelling on the exterior image and avoiding, you know, any sort of conclusions or suggesting any underlying specific meanings. It avoids forming definitive conclusions and meanings associated with the interior of objects and events. It is left for the reader to interpret. So, most of the times, the narratives, the art is open ended. Postmodernism also sees human experiences unstable, internally contradictory. So, this contradiction and chaos heightens by the time we reach postmodernism. The ambiguity, the inconclusiveness, indeterminacy, the unfinishedness, the fragmentation, jagged edges with no one specific reality possible are all symptoms of postmodernism. So, postmodern writers create an open work in which readers must supply their own connections, work out alternative meanings, and provide their unguided interpretation. In that way, postmodern novels celebrate and revel in the chaos of an incoherent world. That's the basic difference between modernism and postmodernism. While modernism mourns the loss of the unified world, the unified perspective, postmodern actually revels, celebrates this. Postmodern works celebrate this chaos, this unevenness, this jaggedness of the world. So Edmund Husserl's 1935 lecture, which is titled Philosophy and the Crisis of European Man, identifies the modern era, starting with Galileo's invention and with Descartes, Rene Descartes' philosophy. So Europe, according to Edmund Husserl, has become obsessed with science and the external world, the externality of the happenings around us, uh, and this focus to the outwardness happens at the expense of our spirit and the psychological ruminations, at the expense of Lebenswelt, Lebenswelt, meaning the world of lived experience. We are moving far and far away from the this here now, the immediacy, the immanent meaning. So Edmund Husserl talks about the crisis of European humanity, where he identifies the roots of the crisis to a kind of estrangement. So, in his crisis lecture, he talks about modernity that has, I quote, reduced the world to a mere object of the technical and mathematical investigation and put the concrete world of life, uh, you know, uh, die Levensfeld beyond their uh, horizon. The result is that modernity began a process of the forgetting of being. So we are being estranged from ourselves. We do not look within, we only have to look without. So Milan Kundera takes up from here, from uh, Edmund Husserl's rather very insightful understanding of the crisis of the modern European man in his work, The Art of the Novel, where Kundera goes on to posit that the novel as a form is a redemption of what Heidegger calls as the forgetting of being due to scientific and technological investigation, which results in an individual losing perspective of the world as a whole or even a holistic view of one's self. This is self estrangement, right? And this is the crisis of the modern European man, as Husserl puts it. So, from being the master and proprietor of nature, like Rene Descartes would see humans as, uh, man has progressively been driven by technological, political, and historical forces which have gone on to surpass and possess him. Kundera says that Husserl neglected the novel as a form. Kundera begins the discussion specifically by focusing on Miguel Cervantes's masterpiece, classic work, Don Quixote. So, it is in the form of the novel that Europeans have for almost 400 years been investigating the interior life of humanity, which is, unavailable. The answers of this interior life is unavailable in the society, in the immediate society. So it has to be discovered through novel writing, through novel reading. The novel discovers those elements of life which only the novel can answer, and therefore the sequence of great novelists amount to a sequence of discoveries about human nature. Cervantes heralded the novel as a new genre, like the name suggests, novel, and it makes a departure from any strong moral, ideological, or judgmental positions. So, Cervantes' protagonist Don Quixote makes religious and ideological convictions stand on their head. At the beginning of the modern era, God begins to disappear, and with him, the idea of any single definitive truth. Instead, what we have, what the world witnesses, are, fragmentary existences governed by multiple truths. In the modern novel, the multiple truths are dramatized in the form of different characters with their own quirks, own oddities, own layers and nuances, who are neither completely good nor completely evil. So, novel's world is therefore a world to face without any godly interventions. Heroism of the novel's protagonist lies in taking on the world as a thinking self. So earlier in our discussion on epic and novel, we have seen how the epic hero is undertaking a journey which is already always predetermined. I'm not going to the details in this discussion here, but novel is certainly a breakaway from that epic worldview, the antiquated worldview. To inhabit a novel's world is to come out of traditional binarism in our understanding, in associating meanings, and therefore essential relativity replaces absolutism, and we look at ordinary actions in the absence of a supreme judge. It could be the god, it could be a political leader, all these judges' perspectives are removed in the understanding of the novel. So, for Kundera, Cervantes is the harbinger of the modern era. Novel addresses different aspects of human existence, the inner psychic nuances, man's position vis-a-vis history, and his encounter with it, within it. And then Cervantes treats the nature of adventure. We see that various, attempts at writing novels by different authors have tried to grasp different, tried to grasp the existence, the question of existence from various angles. So, for example, Cervantes treats the nature of adventure. Richardson talks about the secret life of feelings. We have Balzac talking about man's rootedness, belonging in history. We have Flaubert, we have talking about the role of the quotidian, everyday mundane existence. Thomas Mann looks at the role of past myths in the present. Leo Tolstoy talks about the intrusion of the irrational into decision making. Marcel Proust is studying the elusiveness of the time past. James Joyce is interested in the elusiveness of the time present. So, for Kundera, the novel's world is deserted by God. There are no essentialist value systems that distinguish the good from the evil. So, for example, in Don Quixote, with which this new, Don Quixote being the marker of this new groundbreaking form, it's a breakaway from epic, right? Don Quixote shows us that the single divine truth is already decomposed. It is already, it has already given way to a number of relative truths. It has been replaced by a number of relative truths. So, early European novels such as Don Quixote are journeys through an unlimited world without spatial and temporal frontiers and boundaries. It heralds the idea of an expansive mental scape to a mind that is not, guarded or kind of controlled by too many external determinants. Even the question of national border is absent in Don Quixote. The protagonist trotting on horseback and following the heroes of chivalric romance, he believes that he is out on an expedition, on new ventures every day. So that possibility is still there. The horizon does not intrude the borderless, expansive mental scape. Following this trend, after Cervantes and Diderot, we have Balzac. Balzac, where the distant horizons are starting to show, the borders, the limits of the horizons are starting to show. They are being engulfed. The vast horizon is being engulfed by social institutions. So, by the time we are reading Balzac, we have categories, we have elements of society that question, that control our actions and thoughts. It could be the police, it could be the army, it could be the state. And in Balzac's world, man is not outside of history, but constantly interacts with history. So, by the time we are in Balzac, we are already historical beings. It gives birth to the world of realism, the world of verisimilitude. Our work is imaging the reality. The word and the world almost replicate one another. So, the word replicates the world. So, it gives birth to a world of realism comprising multifaceted, morally ambiguous characters and Then we have following Balzac that has been called as a visionary observer by Charles Baudelaire. After Balzac and his realist tradition, where we have all the minutest details being charted out in a writing. Following that, we have Gustave Flaubert creating the blast, prosaic world of everyday, which is experienced by Emma Bovary. The outside world has lost its uniqueness, and the horizon has already become limited. It's not a vast expanse. We already have a limited vision, limited by external determinants. So there is a boredom, you know, a boredom that defines the outside. It can only be countered through an illusion of uniqueness of one's individual soul. So the question of a journey on the inner, an introspective state, you know, in such a world, man is indifferent to history, and so the psyche is predominantly shaped by inner journeys, like I said, and a constant state of trance, of wistfulness, a pensive state of self dominates. Later still, we have the case of Kafka's K, where Joseph K is not even a full name. It could be anyone. It could be the author Kafka himself. And it does not matter who the character is, because by the time we reach Kafka, the characters are diminished beings. The history and social institutions take on man by its vice grip, its iron grip, such that life's expansive possibilities, its worth, its infinite, its infinity of soul are diminished to a sheer helplessness. In Kafka's trial, for example, we see K's dreams and intimate gestures are also being policed, and this policing, this question of surveillance, the panopticon, keeps coming back to haunt most of Kafka's works, be it trial, be it metamorphosis. We see in Metamorphosis, for example, the workspace and the socioeconomic undercurrents invading the individual life. The office people are coming and knocking at the bedroom door, so the question of privacy simply goes, and the human is turned into an insect, not literally but metaphorically. We know the meaning, the human life, its expansive meanings do not matter anymore. So the office walks into and pervades one's private space to the level of reducing human life into a subhuman existence. The reader can know nothing about K's name. What does K stand for? Is it Kafka's alter ego? Is it Kafka himself writing about his own life experiences? We don't know anything about K's memories, his habits, because his personal impulses, his likes, dislikes do not matter. They do not carry any weight in a world where external determinants are all too overpowering. So, Kundera's unbearable lightness similarly comments on the human life in a trap, a kind of world we live in post World War One, where the history and the social categories have crammed our existence. They have hemmed us in. They close around us so much that our individual identities do not matter. So while Marcel Proust is creating an internal universe of human psyche that never ceases to amaze the reader, in Kafka we see that the internal motivations are we in Kafka we don't find the internal motivations that determine human behavior. They are almost dead, or they are blocked by other factors. So Kafka was a conscious departure from Balzac's realist worldview, and so Kafka is deploying surrealist technique from realism. There is a breakaway and recoursing to the fantasy, recoursing to dreams. So he is kind of fusing dream, fantasy, with reality. It's a way of breaking free of the inescapable grids and imperatives of, verisimilitude, where word is the world. Word cannot represent the world anymore. That is the new, modern experience, the modern age's experience, where loyalty to things real and trying to transcribe facts into writing is no longer possible. In the same way, we see the chronological treatment of events is no longer being followed. There are different experimentations with uh, how events are placed in time. There are flashbacks, so narratives start in media res, and sometimes narratives do not, really move forward. By the time it's postmodern, there are non-stories around, where there is a struggle to progress in the plot in the traditional sense of the term. So according to Kundera, the whole point of the novel is that it does not rush to judgment. Novel as a form neither praises nor condemns, but rather tolerates the essential relativity of things human. It is just projecting the complex way we exist, the complex, and so it highlights, novel as a form highlights the differential meanings of our being. So Kundera laments the spirit of the age in which modernism is thriving, how the mass media are making everything look and sound around us, which reduces everything into stereotypes, into sound bites, simplifying the world. So we have an oversimplistic world around us, creating endless babble of the graphomanics, where the novel's task is to revel in its oddity, not give away to any direct meaning, direct suggestion, and thereby keep the complexity of human existence alive in its form. So, from here, we are going to move into our next topic within the module of modernist literature, modernist tradition, which is human psyche and stream of consciousness. So, stream of consciousness is a style or technique of writing that tries to capture the natural flow of a character's, extended thought process, often by incorporating sensory impressions, incomplete ideas, unusual syntax, and rough grammar. It is associated with the early 20th century modernist movement, and the term stream of consciousness originated in psychology before literary critics began using it to describe a narrative style that depicts how people think in a non-linear, in a layered fashion. The term was first coined by Alexander Bain in his work The Senses and the Intellect, although it is credited to William James, who used it in his work for the first time, the work titled The Principles of Psychology. Although it is credited to William James, who used this term in his work, The Principles of Psychology. So, stream of consciousness became a critical term when May Sinclair used it in her work on Dorothy Richardson. It has been treated in the hands of several well-known authors such as Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, William Faulkner, and Henry James. And then we see by the time it reaches Henry James, stream of consciousness also reaches its fantastic potentials. Andrew Sanders says that it is a technique expressive of the female consciousness, the way the feminine consciousness functions in contradistinction to the normative masculinist way of thinking or way of being. So, stream of consciousness is responsible for dissolving the frigid concept of time and allowing time to flow freely. It leads to the loss of the significance of unilinear chronology, such that the past, present, and future can all together exist at a given moment, which constantly goes on to shape and is shaped by the character's psyche. So, commingling of past, present and future, uh, which influences, which tells us about the complex character's psyche. So, as psychological novel developed in the 20th century, some writers attempted to express the unobstructed flow of thoughts within the conscious human mind instead of limiting the mind to rational thoughts only, as a way of representing the fullness, the richness, this and the speed or the lack, the absence of the speed, the intricacies of the mind. The writers were incorporating snatches of incoherent thoughts, ungrammatical, constructions, and free association of images and words existing at the pre-speech level as a way of denoting the fragmented nature of human consciousness. Traditional prose writing has always been highly linear. Stream of consciousness is often a nonlinear. It makes use of unusual syntax and grammar, associative leaps, repetitions, and there is an experimentation, significant experimentation with the plot structure. So, for example, in Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Times explores this intermingling of the past with the present. In terms of syntax and grammar, we see stream of consciousness writing does not usually follow ordinary rules of grammar and syntax or word order. This is because thoughts are often not fully formed. They change in the course of progression. They do not progress further. They stop somewhere in the middle and become run-on sentences. They are interrupted, intercepted by another thought. For instance, in Death of Venice, Thomas Mann uses, irregular syntax and grammar as a way of helping to convey his main character's gradual descent into madness as a part of, through using the stylistic devices of stream of consciousness. In addition, we see that writers of stream of consciousness often use punctuation in unconventional ways. These could be using of italics, ellipses, dashes, line breaks, all of which indicate pauses and shifts in the character's train of thought. There is commonly a forsaking of, repudiation of linear development of the story, linear development of the plot, leading to production of unpunctuated prose, a prose that cannot be approached, cannot be accessed with our traditional expectations as readers. So it offers some kind of resistance in smooth reading, traditionally speaking. So the effect of changing concept of time is distinctly visible in Virginia Woolf's works such as Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. We see the consciousness of characters such as Clarissa Dalloway and Septimus constantly, oscillating between the psychological time and the physical time. The clock tower, the Big Ben, calls back to the real coordinates whenever Mrs. Dalloway is lost in her stream of consciousness, or whenever Septimus is trapped in the traumatic memories of war. So, with stream of consciousness, we also need to understand the element of association, where stream of consciousness makes use of associative thought. The writers transiting between ideas, through using loose connections that are often based on a character's personal experiences and memories. So, navigating from one thought to another, from one sentence to another, making associations between the two. As an example, we could see that the character's thoughts are often presented to the reader in response to sensory impressions. So thoughts are connected with fragmented observations, which describe what the characters see, what the characters hear, smell, feel, or taste. Another element of stream of consciousness is repetition. So the writers might use repetition to indicate that the character keeps coming back to, the characters might be fixated on a certain thought or a certain sensory impression. Repeated words and phrases can act as signposts, pointing readers towards significant themes and motifs that keep coming back. Kundera mentions in The Art of the Novel how the novelists, the modern novel and novelists, deploy language and other technicalities to convey, the changing, pace of time. It could be slowness, speed, which also comments on the way our memory functions, our psyche functions. Arranging events out of chronological order helps to give the readers details about the past that the characters are constantly trying to access through their memories. In The Sound and the Fury, William Faulkner conveys many important events and details through memories that arise as part of his different characters' stream of consciousness. Here I'm going to stop our discussion today and we will meet again in our next lecture. Thank you.